Summer school kind of took over my life again this month, which didn't leave me much time to do anything else, so here's a short but comprehensive list of the books, movies, TV, and music I got to this month. Okay, let's do it. The first book I read this month was Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng, and I loved it. It was a beautifully sad portrait of a family falling apart after the death of the favorite daughter, Lydia. Celeste Ng's writing is gorgeous. Every description is so vivid, like I could see and hear and taste it all. Her writing is so smooth. It guided me through the story and created a beautiful atmosphere for this devastating narrative. It focused on the issues this family has been facing since the mother and father, Marilyn and James, met. They're a Chinese-American family living during the 70s, so there's definitely a lot of cultural disconnect and feeling the need to assimilate, and just flat-out racism that this family, especially James, faces. On the other hand, there's talk about the value of women in the 1900s and the lackluster role in society they've played for the majority of history. That's a big problem that plagues Marilyn, and basically those issues get bottled up and passed down to their children, which forms this great big cesspool of problems in this family that inform the way they live. That eventually is the reason it starts to break them apart. Like, my goodness, the book is amazing. It's definitely hard on the emotions, so just know that you'll probably have a great and all-encompassing feeling of despair at some point during this book. 5 stars. I really want to pick up Celeste Ng's other work. The only other book I got to this month is The Marvels by Brian Selznick. This book encompasses 2 stories, one of them told through drawings and the other through traditional narrative. One story takes place in the 1700s and follows the life of a boy named Billy Marvel, the sole survival of a shipwreck, who then goes on to head one of the most celebrated families in theater. The other story is set in 1990 and follows a young boy named Joseph, who has run away from boarding school to find his eccentric uncle, Albert Nightingale. I love Brian Selznick and his books. I have ever since grade 3 when I first read The Invention of Hugh Cabret. His art is gorgeous. It really draws you into every world he creates. His books are so full of wonder and whimsy, and I just think they're the perfect children's stories that can still be enjoyed even if you are not a child anymore. I've read this book once before, but it was a while ago and I don't entirely remember what happened, and I haven't finished it this time around yet, so no rating just now. But I have a feeling it'll land somewhere between 4 and 5 stars. I guess you'll just have to wait for my next That's a Wrap to find out. I unfortunately watched The Last Airbender movie twice this month. Since the first time I watched it, I knew immediately I needed to make a video about it, so I ended up watching the worst movie in the world again. There are certain films that are universally seen as terrible, and there are so many people who rag on them, but you honestly never truly know just how bad they actually are until you watch them yourself, and that was 100% my experience with this movie. This was genuinely god-awful, probably one of the worst films I have ever seen. I watched it for the first time the exact same day I finished watching the show, and the extent to how bad it was both laughable and angering. Even if I wasn't a fan of the original show, I would still hate this film, because what is this? I don't even think I can call this a film. Half a star. Work It was just meh. Really don't have much to say about it other than that, and that seems to be a trend with these Netflix teen movies. They feel wholly uninspired and unoriginal, and I feel like I'm so mean for saying that, but it's true. For the most part, the acting is fine. It's nothing crazy, but it's questionable at times. Also, things like the camera movement, lighting, and editing are just okay. There's nothing really actually interesting or beautiful to see. Actually, one thing that genuinely pissed me off in this movie was they had this little montage of all the dance group members facing the camera head on and dancing a bit, and it would switch from character to character to character, but they didn't match up the movements between each character to make a cohesive match cut, and I was like, why? That would have made this sequence just a little bit better. It's the bare minimum for this kind of sequence, and it's what we as viewers are expecting to see, so at least try to do that, and then they just didn't, and I was actually so mad about that. But other than that, I think there was just one too many dance sequences in this, and you're probably like, Oishi, you're watching a dance movie. Of course there's dance sequences. But they got kind of repetitive and boring after a while, and my attention was drifting. I think the best part of this was the one-shot dance between Sabrina Carpenter and Jordan Fisher. The choreography, lighting, and camera work here were slightly above average, and honestly, that's more than you can ask for half of these teen Netflix films. 2 stars. So I started the month off on kind of a low note, but man, did it pick up with Searching. I've been wanting to see this movie since I first saw the trailer a few years ago, but for one reason or another, I just never got around to it. So when Netflix added it to its library, I watched it immediately, and damn, I loved it. Having a whole movie set on phone and laptop screens isn't exactly new, but this was the first of its kind I saw, and the immersion factor was off the charts. I could imagine being the dad in this situation, going through my daughter's laptop to look for clues about her disappearance. My heart was beating so hard throughout the entire thing. I really couldn't predict which way the story was going with all the twists and subversions, and this film was genuinely scary to me, because I am an avid watcher of true crime, so I'm always paranoid that I'm gonna go missing one day. So yeah, scary to think about, and I can't even imagine what that would be like from the perspective of a parent. Also, thinking about the editing that went into this movie is insane. Each frame is so intricately made, whether it be a Facebook page, an article, an email. The real fun in this is seeing what's going on in the background. In fact, it was something in the background that gave me a theory as to what might have happened to the daughter. In the beginning, she texted her father that she was studying for a test, and joked that it would be okay because her teacher would never let her fail. And then later, after the daughter went missing and the dad was going through her contacts and messages, I paused at just the right moment and saw that one of the student's last messages to the daughter was about how that teacher was a creep. So I was convinced for a while that the teacher would have had something to do with the disappearance. But no, that's not what happened. But even though that didn't end up being the plot, it just goes to show how meticulous the details and continuity in this film is. Also, I watched an LME video and they talked about how in the background, the world in this movie was going through this extraterrestrial threat, and I was just like, wow, the subplots, the continuity. I could keep talking about this movie, but I guess I'll stop now. Searching gets a 4.5 stars from me, and I'll also leave that LME video linked in the description below if you want to go check it out. Shirley was weird, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. As I said in my Letterboxd review, this whole film felt like a fever dream. The cinematography in this movie was something to behold. The camera was ever-moving, restless, like it had this nervous, neurotic energy to it. It was so uncomfortably close and shaky to both Shirley and Rosie, framing like just their eyes or their mouth, and it created this claustrophobic effect. Meanwhile, it was quite far and rather stable when framing Fred and Stanley, which I think was an interesting way to show the differences between the women and men in this time, and the way Shirley was both manipulating Rosie to be further from Fred, while also struggling with her own love-hate relationship with her husband. It was some strange, devious stuff. I will say that sometimes I didn't entirely know what was happening. At times, I feel like the style overtook the plot and I would get a little bit lost, but in the long run, that's a small gripe to have, especially since I really liked this style. Slow-moving, lingering styles in movies really appeals to me for some reason. Like, it's a very specific aesthetic that I vibe really hard with. Anyway, really weird movie, but worth a watch. 4 stars. I ended the month off with both Frozen 1 and Frozen 2. I liked the first Frozen better than the second one. Of course, I really loved the themes in the first one with family and sisterhood. It really got me in my feels, and I can see why it's so beloved by so many people. The second one is where I had more problems. For some reason, it didn't even really feel like the Frozen franchise to me. It still had those themes of family and sisterhood, but the overall story felt bigger and a lot more different than what I would attribute to the Frozen franchise. I appreciate what they were trying to do with this colonists entering where they shouldn't and messing things up narrative for kids, albeit it is a bit watered down with the happy ending, which I get, it's Disney, you need a happy ending, even though in real life these issues aren't solved overnight and they last for generations, and we still don't have a happy ending today, and to be frank, I don't think there ever will be one. There'll only be slightly less sad endings just because of the sheer amount of crap there is. But apart from all that, I also had issues with the narrative internally. The pacing on this felt way off. We had 3 major perspectives in this, Elsa, Anna, and Kristoff, but the amount of time we spend with each varies greatly, and we don't switch between them in the way that feels cohesive. Like, we might spend a ton of time with Elsa, and then a bit of time with Kristoff, and then a little more time with Anna. Like, I don't know, it just had a bit of a stunted flow to me. Also, Kristoff felt so useless throughout this entire thing, but they did give him his own song, which I was happy about, because I love Jonathan Groff. But at the same time, I didn't really love the song, and the way they did it too was like a 90s pop music video, and it felt so out of place that I couldn't do anything else but laugh, which is sad because Groff is so talented. I mean, they're all really talented, but they all get songs that I actually liked, and then Jonathan Groff gets whatever the heck that was. I mean, he sounded good in it, but I just couldn't take it seriously. Overall, I still had fun, which I guess is what matters with Disney movies. Frozen gets 4 stars, Frozen 2 gets 3. I finished Avatar: The Last Airbender this month, and my entire life has been derailed. In fact, I'm currently watching the entire show again, because I clearly have nothing better to do with my life. Book 2 was even better than Book 1, and Book 3 was even better than Book 2. I just... wow, what a fantastic show. I don't think I mentioned this in my last That's a Wrap, but the animation in this show is stunning. It's kind of crazy how this show is from the early 2000s, but still has some of the most beautiful animated sequences I have ever seen. Add in the gorgeous score, and there were so many scenes in this that had me staring at the screen, just jaw-dropped in awe at the sheer beauty that I was having the honor of experiencing. The firebending masters, the final Agni Kai, the Day of the Black Sun, Sozin's Comet, gorgeous, gorgeous, I couldn't believe it. The character arcs in this show are some of the best I've ever seen in TV, ever, much less a kids show. Of course, Aang's hero's journey and Katara going from waterbending amateur to master are both fantastic, but the standouts for me have to be Sokka and Zuko. Wow, we're really just jumping into the Zuko content. It's just so satisfying. I love Sokka and his transformation so much, I can't even fully explain it. And yet somehow, I love Zuko's even more. In my last That's a Wrap, I mentioned how I was in love with Zuko because broody men are attractive to me, especially when they're well written, and Zuko could be the poster child for that description. Zuko's character arc, just thinking about his progression gets me going. No, but seriously, I love this arc. Again, it's probably one of the best arcs I've seen in media, period. It's like right up there with Walter White and Jaime Lannister before Dumb and Dumber ruined him. That's all I'm gonna say right now because I'm thinking of making an entire video on Zuko's arc and redemption arcs in general, and like comparing his arc against other redemption arcs. I don't know just yet, but Zuko's arc is amazing and I know I have to make at least one video about it. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about Avatar now because there's still more stuff I need to get through for this video, but obviously Book 2 and 3 of Atla get 5 out of 5 stars. The Umbrella Academy Season 2 dropped this month, and I loved it. My love for the Umbrella Academy is so strong, it's a little bit scary. Season 2's storyline was super fun. It was set in the 60s, which meant fashion and music was awesome, but the state of civil rights wasn't. Which that's a thing I enjoyed a lot about this season, is how they tied real-life events into the show and placed the Hargreaves family there, most notably with the sit-ins and, of course, JFK's assassination. We got more development and daddy issues from all of the siblings. We got more Ben, which I'm here for because Ben is baby and so done with Klaus all the time, which is fair because Klaus is actively ignoring him this season, and Ben just needs to be protected at all costs. I will say that I don't think Season 2 had the same immediate charm that Season 1 did. I think with Season 1 I got drawn in very quickly, and there were a lot of fun dance and fight sequences. Season 2 does have fantastic fight sequences, I will give them that, but the closest they got to giving me the same sort of giddy feeling outside of those fight sequences was Allison, Vanya, and Klaus's bonding plus a dance scene in the beauty parlor, and also maybe the dinner with Hargreaves. But that being said, this season wasn't completely charmless. It was still weird and fun, it just took me a few more episodes to get fully invested into it. Even still, I love this show. They really left us on quite the cliffhanger, so I cannot wait for the story to continue. Season 2 of The Umbrella Academy gets 4.5 stars. Glass Animals really dropped a perfect album, period. Dreamland is amazing. It's a study of youth and growing up and being shaped by the harshness of the world. It's both incredibly nostalgic at times with tracks like Dreamland, Tangerine, and even Hot Sugar a little bit, but it can also be unsettling and scary to think about, playing on insecurities and bringing up the worst moments of life with tracks like Space Goes Coast to Coast, Tokyo Drifting, Waterfalls Coming Out Your Mouth, and It's Also Incredibly Loud. It also joins the two feelings with Domestic Bliss, and for me, Heat Waves and Helium feels like that as well. But throughout the whole thing, as we see this picture of someone growing up, there was also little recordings of home movies from the lead singer Dave Bailey's childhood with his mom talking, and you just get that lovely, warm feeling of home. They intercut the harshness and difficulties of growing up in a hard world with these beautiful nuggets of the past that really just put a smile on your face because you're getting to remember back to a simpler time and find solace in a mother's voice. It's melancholic, it's scary, it's heavy, it's gorgeous. My favorite tracks have to be Hot Sugar, Space Goes Coast to Coast, Tokyo Drifting, Your Love, Waterfalls Coming Out Your Mouth, It's Also Incredibly Loud, and Helium. It's perfect. I love it, and giving it anything less than 5 stars would be blasphemous. And last but not least, BTS released their first ever fully English song, Dynamite. It took me a few listens to warm up to it because I just wasn't expecting what we got, but after I listened to it a number of times, I can confirm that it's kind of a bop. It's got this 70s, 80s disco vibe, it's very upbeat, and it feels like summer. Like, I don't know if it makes sense, but this loosey-goosey kind of like go with the flow feeling makes me think of summer, and I kind of really like it. I also really like the instrumental. It sounds like elevator music to me, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all. I mean, it gives me a chill, like, laid-back vibe that you can sort of absentmindedly bop to. Kind of reminds me of Stave Gold in that sense. I think my favorite part is the big brass section in the second chorus and the bridge. That brass line is just so much fun. In the end, I don't think it's the hardest bop they've ever put out, because a lot of their other songs get me going. They make me want to fight someone. Like, I could organize a revolution to some of their other songs. This one is perfect for sipping tea in the Jasmine Dragon from Avatar on a Tuesday afternoon, and sometimes that's exactly what we need. I give it 3 stars. As always, I'll leave all the music I spoke about in the description below if you want to check it all out. And there you have it. Those were all the books, movies, TV, and music I got to this month. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what some stuff you loved this month, and if you like this sort of content and you want to see more of it from me, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Also, I'm on platforms, so if you want to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and Letterboxd, those links will be in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.